Hello, everyone, and welcome to H&D Abroad. I am Herman,
I'm Dee.
and we are always glad to have you here with us on this beautiful Saturday. Um, it's been a good week, a little
Very,
warmer this week, which was
very
always
good.
a blessing. And so we're kind of jumping in today because want to hit on some new stuff. And so we'll take a minute first to tell you who we are. If you don't know who we are, again, I'm Herman. This is my wife, Dee. And here on our channel, we share our experience and process for moving abroad. And we've done that through sharing our experiences and our travel and
The
building
research.
the research that we build and building what has become an amazing community, which is you. And this community, through interviews and through these conversations, because this is always a conversation with you, we have learned so much about this process. And hopefully, in what we've shared through our experience and the experiences of the people who've been on with us, it's been beneficial to you as well. So if you are new to us, and even if you're returning, we ask first that you would hit the like button on this video.
Yep.
I'm hitting it on mine because I like it too.
Yeah.
And then if you're new to our channel, please subscribe because we would love to have you as a part of our community, and hit the notification bell. We go live every Saturday, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays.
Yes.
For Man Mondays and Women's Health Focus. Did I forget anything?
No. I had a conversation. I don't know if Yvette is a regular member of this community. And last fall, before we took our scouting trip, I had a pretty deep conversation with someone in my tribe, my Move Abroad tribe. And she really talked about perfecting the pivot. And I was like, stolen, I'm going to use it in an upcoming broadcast. And now I understand why it is such a critical piece in deciding and making the choices clearer, because I think once you get excited about moving abroad, then you begin to recognize the deeper that you get into the information and then what is available through just your basic passport access, and then the variety of visitor visas that are available in most of the countries in the world. You can kind of get overwhelmed. So you need a way to kind of parse things down. So we've talked a lot on our channel about, your non-negotiable checklist, kind of looking at the reality of your move, from what you want and the expectations that you have for a country, but also what are the realities on the ground? Not just, is it a pretty place? Is it walkable? But what are the tax implications in that country for how long I stay, or the kind of visa that I go there with, or just the cost of living? I mean, you can spend any kind of budget just about anywhere, but is that accessibility going to be a match for what your needs are? And so you just kind of, I feel like you come with this plan and the plan begins to feel boxy. The plan can begin it does. I mean, that's one benefit. It says this is in, and these other things are out, and it helps you to focus. But what I don't want people to miss is that, like last week's conversation, I talked a lot about resiliency. And that's where the pivot comes in, is within your plan, have you built flexibility? Have you built in accommodating, there's what you can experience for a few days or a few weeks that you're on the ground, but sometimes the reality of how friendly a place is, my ability to navigate without knowing the language, or just being a foreigner in a different environment and missing things that are familiar sounds, familiar smells, how business is run. It takes the ability to say, where can I be flexible because I still want to achieve my goal. So the first conversation was Yvette, and then the second conversation was with Rashidat. And I'll talk about that in just a second.
Well, I just wanted to say that something you just said was important. You said within the plan.
Yeah.
It's important to state that pivoting does not mean you don't have a plan. It does not mean that you aren't preparing. There are people who are going to ask the questions. Well, if I don't have a plan, then, I'm just free balling and it can all go wrong. Please don't. There are tons of videos and interviews by people, both by us and by other content creators, of people who have gone out there on a whim and it didn't turn out well for them. And for some people it has.
Right.
For those of us who need a little more security, have a plan. But I think what we'll be trying to suggest to you, what we'll be trying to suggest to you today is, in that plan, be flexible for the unexpected, be flexible for the change, be flexible for the broader range of opportunities that may present themselves than just what you've had access to.
Right.
So I thought it was important to say that, because I think that's a part of it. Yes, there's a plan. Yes, there's a process. Have an idea of what you're doing and why. Know where you're going. But in that process, make sure you also are prepared for things that you can't anticipate because they're new to you.
So we're just literally, okay, so I watch a lot of YouTube. That's a part of my research. So I want to say that we've been watching Jice Gen X Quench.
Yes, we have.
Recently, he and his wife had a really great conversation about, what was the title? We just watched it this morning.
Things we won't do anymore.
One of the things that you guys have heard me talk about is almost the over planning for the express purpose of controlling. I want to control, and I cannot. This process, throw control out the window. I would just say, try to be prepared in a variety of different ways. It's almost like it's over preparation. And when I say over preparation, for me, that means I'm listening to a variety of sources for information. I'm not using just one place, one person that's on the ground in a city that I'm in, and I'm following their journey. They seem to be living a fruitful life, a productive life that matches with the way that I want to do it. And it's kind of like the propaganda. I'm only listening to US media, so I only have one perspective about how great it is in my country and how everyone else pales or experiences outside the US pale in comparison.
Listen to young people, listen to older people, listen to married people, listen to single people, different genders, different backgrounds. They bring information to the table that may at times seem specific to their experience, but may offer a broader range of information. Even if, as a married couple, if one of us travels alone, information that might be important because we're alone versus when we're together. Simple things that you might dismiss because, hey, that only happens to guys, or that only happens to people who are going to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
It definitely opens up a broader set of information.
Fact on fact, we not rich.
No, ma'am.
But we watch a channel that is specifically slated to people who are 6 and 7 figure earners. that are leveraging living abroad, getting citizenship, from a citizenship by investment strategy that clearly is not in my purview, but I have definitely benefited from the information that's there. And so what I feel like we are sharing today are just the examples, the little seeds of hope that we've been able to pull into our plan to help us to be able to pivot if that is the requirement, the need, or the desire. So Rashidat, your dream strategist, I've had her on our channel before on one of my Thursday talks. This week, she talked about failing is the cheat code to success. It is very difficult for someone who likes control, put it here, who likes control, who likes structure, who needs that to feel like the process has structure and a direction to go in. And as I've gotten older and as we have been working with our young adults, our kids, talking more about failing forward and just being able to incorporate, because it's gonna come, y'all, you know it's gonna come. So I watch Maggie. She is a YouTuber who is retired in Panama. Yesterday, literally, she was laughing almost to the point of tears at just, you don't go out trying to give away money. She said, but because she normally travels from country to country by plane, she decided to go from Panama to Costa Rica with the land border, but got her information from one friend who failed to tell her, make sure when you are leaving Panama, you get a stamp in your passport. When you cross the bridge, go to the Costa Rican and get that stamp. And then on your way back, do the same. You don't just need permission to go to a new country. You actually need permission to leave Panama, and it needs to be documented so that they're checking it. Even as a full resident of Panama, instead of getting that $8 stamp, she paid $1,000. And y'all know how I feel about losing money.
That's not losing money. That's losing money.
I was like, who just asked me to flush $1,000 down the toilet?
Yeah, that's a financial beatdown right there.
And what I learned from her is, yes, no one, regardless of your financial ability, wants to lose money. But what she has changed, what she has pivoted on, is that money and my attachment to it needs to be looser. I cannot allow it to define me. I do use it for the structure and to create the longevity to my plan. But sometimes you just gonna get got. Sometimes you're gonna pay the gringo tax. Sometimes, you're gonna think you're getting the best deal. You're getting the best deal that you could get with what you knew then. And when you know better, you do better. And these are the kind of experiences. It's like parents. Parents try to tell you, and I'm telling you this as a parent. You try to tell your kids the mistakes I made so that you don't have to make them. And what do? We ignore our parents. We say, your experience isn't my experience. I need to make my own mistakes. I'm not out here. I'm grown now, and I know the benefit. And so I believe not just seeing that people have lost, but the to also hear people say, I didn't know, and I wish I had taken a minute to look at my plan with more than just getting out the door. I was in the Spain digital nomad group, and the guy was like, I did not understand what taxes were going to be impacting me. He said he pays 80 euros a month for a Spanish accountant to manage his funds so that he can properly file his taxes at the end of the year. And that's just on the Spain side. And then the Spanish tax structure, he was just like, man, I really wish that I had sat down. So if you have a channel, please share the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we're out here looking for it. That's actually where I feel like they are a trustworthy source, is if they're telling me how things have not gone
Correct.
as planned.
Correct. And even when you're watching, I agree with you. You ought to have a more diverse group of things that you absorb because you want to have a broader span. But most people get into what feels comfortable to me. Challenge the people that you watch. These content creators, there's a reason there's a comment section. And challenge it, because what Linda is saying here, to Kendi Travel is sharing here, is that you're going to realize that everything they say might apply to you and none of it might apply to you. Even if they're giving you the most resourceful set of information, the experience that you have, young people are right. I have to have my own experience. What we've learned as adults is, okay, what's the principle behind this information that's being shared with me, and not
Right.
the exact experience that's being shared with me.
Yeah.
If you drive with one hand, you will drive off the road. That's not necessarily true. There are people with two hands on the wheel who might drive off the road. But what am I looking for? What kinds of things might affect the way I drive, the way the car moves? You plan to play ball. You practice the same moves over and over and over again in basketball, in football, even though every time you go to play, you're playing somebody different, who's got a different set of players, who's got a different set of strategies, who've got a different mindset about how they play. And you have to adjust that in the game. But you build that on the foundation that you use, but you have to pivot. No pun intended. You have to make the adjustment so that because otherwise you'll be boxed in and you will always lose no matter how good you are.
And to hear people say, I sold everything in the States and I got out here and this has turned into not the blessing I was desiring it to be. Mm-hmm. And I think the realities of disappointment, of feeling like I failed, like I didn't, like this experience isn't what I had hoped it to be, had planned for it to. When I say plan, like the plan that I've executed isn't giving me the results that I'm looking for. So, you know, I think part of the pivot for me, like I said, firstly, mm-hmm. is recognizing where trying to control things isn't what I need to spend my effort. I think I need to have some options on some hot button issues. Money is a hot button issue. So I'm going to need a couple of different ways. One strategy that Maggie talked about in the example, the Panama example, she said, look, I have some money set aside. This account is just for my medical bills, so that if I have a issue and I need to pay cash up front, that's where. And she had to pull from that fund. I mean, she was like, that hurt, but that's what it's there for. The emergency fund is what it's there for.
That's the planning part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you know, moving from having a job to being an entrepreneur is a new strategy for how we fund our life. What do I need to do to create some pivot in that money making? Might be a combination of, look, I got some stuff that, they're going to pay me by PayPal every other week. Bet that's something that I can do, that I can ramp up. I know my cost of living. I haven't overdone my budget, and that at a minimum I can cover my basic expenses. Building, and then having a couple of different ways. Right now in the States, at least when we were growing up, is you got a college degree because you wanted one job to fulfill your needs and requirements. Out here, you're going to need a couple of different ways, a couple of different levers that you can pull within your business or businesses to be able to generate funds, just in case one avenue is not is not as beneficial or gaining as much. The other is emotional. Emotional regulation. For me, the pivot always is, if I need to take a break and leave, I need to have that hell yeah money from Adelia, that oh shit money from that Adelia talks about. Like, I need a break. I need to get out of here so I can regroup and come back with fresh energy, rested, re-energized. I need to build in the emotional resilience into my plan. I know Temple could go in with me on this today, because I think a part of perfecting the pivot for me is, okay, something has happened, or a set of circumstances is showing me that I'm going to have to make a choice. There is a fork in the road, or there's some choices, a variety of choices, and I'm going to have to make one. What do I do? So emotionally, I need to be prepared to say, okay, I know what I want. That's over here. But what can I do to get onto solid ground first, and then work my way toward? So literally, we're looking at a plan that's like, look, we might not be fully ready to leave, but we leaving. So we're going to take this graduated plan. We're going to go to a place that that is a good fit, but isn't like the bells and whistles place that we will still find joy. It still has all of the components. I don't think that that's not a win. I think that is the pivot, that finding my paradise. I'm not sinking everything into this one place.
When you prepare for the pivot,
yeah,
notice that again, when you mentally say this may require some adjustments.
Yes.
You talked about last week, you talked about flexibility, resiliency. When you are flexible in this, there's a measure, I think, of stress that reduces. There's an overwhelming, because you're saying, okay, this is what I want to do. If it does this, because again, it's still a part of the plan.
Yeah, it's still that is what Rashida said. It's a part.
It's a part of the plan.
It's a part of the plan.
But you're planning to be open to the process. When you have if it doesn't do this, we've heard people say, and God bless them for those who can make it work. We went over here, we saw this, we did that, we did nothing more. Hey, do you? I don't want to get somewhere that I think is great, spend more time there, and realize it's not as great for me as I thought it was. And then I got nothing. I'm not prepared. Then I'm stuck. The plan is to say, well, if that doesn't work out, then we can roll back here. We can go there. We can, because and we'll be talking in the future about slow traveling and flex traveling, because there's a measure of, okay, this is really a place where this is really a situational place that we are excited about. But the world is constantly in flux. If you think for a minute, politicians change, everything changes. The seasons change, the culture, the climate change, everything changes. You go to a place today that's lush, tomorrow there's a famine, and the famine starts the day you get there and you don't know, but the next year you got no rain. Right. Everything about where you're living just changed.
Right.
What's your flexibility in making the adjustments that say, okay, I can still work with this, I have to now do that, or this environment now is not the best for me. Where can I go? A part of it, but you have to be willing to make both there's also a sacrifice that you have to, when you make sacrifices, you have to accept.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about selling the house. A part of not selling the house was, if it go bad, I can come to my house. But at the same time, what is the benefit of keeping the house? So then there's that. If we sell the house, do we not have a plan after that? Oh, we still got a plan. There's still a process.
If we have to come back. And that right there. So Nikki put this, leaving is the win. Leaving is the win. The part that it's taken me time to accept is that there may be a set of circumstances where I need to come back. Mm-hmm. And that is not a failure on my part. It's not, it may be a temporary adjustment, but my heart is always going to be to continue my journey. Mm-hmm. There was a gentleman that I used to watch in Merida, and he and his wife had set up their whole life there. And his wife's mother got sick in Florida. If y'all know who I'm talking about, please put it in the chat. But then she did not want to leave Florida and move to Merida, Mexico. Mm-hmm. She didn't want to. He said, we have a whole life established here. Could have had paid for help. My wife and I retired early. We were able to retire early. And going back to the States meant that my wife was going to be a full-time caregiver and I was going to have to go back to work. Y'all, yes. Nikki and I talked about that before. And I was just like, you mean I got to possibly consider the pivot of returning back to the States because of, I was like,
listen, personal experience. We used to watch a couple. I won't put that channel out right now, but there was a channel that when we first started this process, we used to watch regularly. The wife gave us the process that we followed to get our Mexican residency. Nailed it down. One of the best ever. I'm at my job. We're working there together. Young man goes by, and I said, man, he looks just like old dude. And I said that for weeks, and she was like,
that's not him.
That's not it. So one day he and I out side by side at our stations working, and I said, we had just started getting to know each other, and I said, bruh, there's a channel on YouTube my wife and I watch. We just started YouTubing. You look just like that dude. He said, what's the name of the channel? I told him. He said, yeah, that's me. I was like, bruh. Now, mind you, it's been a month and a half. We've been working together here in Alabama, not in Mexico. I was like, what? He said, stuff happened. We had to pivot. We rolled back. They didn't even roll back to the city they were from.
Right.
They moved back to a smaller space to readjust so they could go back into their plan.
He was here for what? Maybe a year?
And then they just disappeared. Hey, not bad at them.
I was going to say much respect.
In this process, it talks about here that boosts confidence and resiliency.
Yeah.
Opens up better opportunities. Listen, when we started this, there was a go here.
Yeah.
Do this, have this much money. Oh man, the number, if this was the large number, we down here with what we need to do. And it's like Nikki said, it's just, we're at the just go. Yeah. Pull the trigger, step out. We are competent capable, intelligent adults who are going out with making informed decisions that sometimes, even with, we have watched people with full preparation, and this goes sideways for them.
Or we know people who have done it sight unseen, and they were just like, my plan is flexible. I'm willing to be flexible with the plan. I got at least the fundamental things, and then I got enough money to go back to where I came from so that I can reset and do this again.
You talked about the guy, Cartes, Move Abroad and Thrive, had a similar story. They were in Colombia, if I remember correctly, and where they were, loved it. He, his wife, and their daughters loved it. But he recognized that the reason they had made for moving abroad was the financial, to build a better financial stand. He's like, we were living at large. We were living like we were still back in Mississippi and Florida. And he was just like, I got to change.
Yeah.
So they moved to Merida. His wife was not happy about that move. She did not move with them when they first left.
She
was not. And he, even in that, he moved to a secure, slightly more expensive area because he wanted to be able, he hadn't had a chance to fully scout it.
Yeah.
So he moved to a place where he alone with his daughters could be safe. And then when his wife moved in with them, they downsized, got their stuff together. They back on the better end, but with more focus, a better plan, it sounds to me.
Yeah.
And that is the flexibility. That's our friends in here, that Nikki and David, they making that move. I talked to Dave. Dave said, we here till we see what it's like, and we go over there, and that helps us decide how we like that area. That level of free, open, decisive flexibility.
Yeah. What I'm telling you, that the perfecting the pivot really should be the center of your plan, because I think the plan makes you do this. I think when you consider, when you are considering, okay, so how do I build in this flexibility, the resiliency? I think I've gotten better with it because I don't have to know everything. ChatGPT, baby, is bae. You hear me? ChatGPT for the win. You hear me?
I'm about to make Chat pay taxes over here. You got a lot to say.
Okay, you get friends. You get friends. You hear me? You build a community. You get friends, just like Dr. Maya, who is well traveled. You get in relationship with people who are not just have good channels, but they're good people, and you're just like, look, when I'm looking at this, what do you see? What I'm seeing? You know, you just and then you don't have to. That's something. The pivot for me is that I can't be in my head only. It can't just be between you and me.
We need to change that to our channel's name.
What? It can't be in my head.
I need to get out my head.
Oh,
we say that like every week. I need to get out my head.
I really do, because I didn't really. It wasn't until I started getting into the Facebook communities, until I started being in the Reddit threads, until I started getting in the WhatsApp groups, and then like that's where your mind is blown. Oh, you mean I can slice this 12 different ways? Like, and do you leave room for the pivot in your plan?
Hey.
So yes, we've done travel where I have been very organized, and I've been like, I know that I can eat at these places. I understand the transportation. I know how to get. And then there have been some travel that, to take me out of that mindset, I've just been like, I'm buying a plane ticket. I'm getting an Airbnb that I've looked to make sure it's at least in a good area. I've read the reviews. And then we just figure it out when we get on the ground, because I need to build both muscles. I need to leave room for the unexpected, leave room for the adventure. And then I also need to be able to lock down a plan because I've got a tight timeline or because I've got a tight budget. And so I at least need to build in the most important pieces, knowing that error, challenges, deficiencies are going to fill in the rest of that space.
Herein lies the benefit of having someone with whom you can bounce ideas off of.
Mm-hmm.
Not just a partner, but even if you're planning to move abroad alone, interacting with someone whose thought process is different than yours or opposite yours. The planner, the pivoter.
And it's a team. It's a team.
And I'm learning to plan and she's learning to pivot. And it's,
come on now.
It's because and the conversations we have, I'm talking like I'm the planner and she's saying there's more pivoting we can do than that. And I'm going, and because you learn that there's more to the process, you focus on essentials and not perfectionism.
Yes.
When you focus on essentials, what are we trying to do? That non-negotiable list is not an inflexible list.
Right.
It's a list that I want hot water. That's the inflexibility. I want hot water.
And stable internet for me.
Okay.
Because I work.
But sometimes that's about the area of a town we live. When we were in Cartagena, we couldn't find, all the Airbnbs said no hot water available. It didn't mean that there was no hot water available. It just was no hot water available where we were looking.
Right.
So then were we flexible enough to move, to stay somewhere that was 20 to 30 minutes away from where we wanted to be versus we stayed across the street from the airport. I mean, literally, I was looking onto the tarmac to our plane from our window. Okay. It cost us more to be in that space. What am I willing to deal with? What's essential here? When you're dealing with the essentials, you take a step back from the if I, then I can't kind of mindset. And it's, is there a way to acquire this? Is there a way to have this? Is there a way to interact with this?
High Vibe is giving a great example. Okay, so let's talk about give an example from our experience that goes from plan to pivot. When I was trying to do this before YouTube existed, yes, we are that old. I was looking for a job. Okay. I was looking for a job and so that I could get a work visa. And I thought that you needed to be able to get citizenship to be in a different country.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Because we did not understand the difference between.
Well, and I don't know how abundant
residencies were.
Okay. Okay. We wanted to move with 3 small children. I'm talking about, we had 3 children under the age of 5. Okay. And so I wanted to move. I thought that those were the criteria, and it really boxed us in where we felt like we could never do it. The regularization plan, the regularization that gets you the permanent visa in Mexico started off very narrow during the pandemic. They were like, if you were here, like I think they were saying like 2018 to 2021, then you could apply, you would go straight from, it had to be expired. And then that visa had to be expired. And then you could apply for the permanent visa in Mexico. And I was like, we never traveled internationally with y'all. Now the regularization, you could have traveled up until 2023. I mean, I was just like, bam, it is the cheat code, because what it does is it shortens it gets you to, it is financially it costs more, but you go from an expired tourist visa to permanent residency. If you're not up close in this process, you could be thinking, well, I gotta do, and then I've got to go, in the US, I gotta go to the consulate, then I got 6 months. If you've been to Mexico, check and see if you qualify. Because regularization is another, if you're not in the flow of information, you don't know that is a pivot point that you could make to go from just a tourist visa access to a lengthy temporary to permanent visa. Now regularization is the cheat code that helps you to get all the way to the permanent visa. And then after you have the permanent visa for a certain amount of time, then and fulfill some other requirements, then you may be eligible for citizenship, which gives you access to a passport. Perfecting the pivot for me meant the more that I learned, the more that I was open to listening. Sometimes it felt like I was listening to the same information over and over again. And what I learned was that each time it was like I was turning the process a little bit more. Even with this, as we are wrapping up this conversation, I don't let not knowing or trying to get the research in or make the right points of contact to fully develop this pivot mindset. I think I first had to accept that I have a picture in my head of how my life is going to be when we leave the US. And that I'm willing for that. It's more of a black and white that's going to be painted in with the reality of being in a place or places.
Real world scenarios.
Okay.
Real world life.
And that I have to just be open to that. Because I think, as I've mentioned before, from my experience, is on the trips where we didn't do a lot of planning, we were able to stumble onto some things that we would never have found because it wasn't within the structure. And so leaving space for the opportunity, we packed for this last trip. And then I get to Panama and I'm just like, why did I bring clothes? I was just like, and so people are talking even in the declutter, the getting rid of conversation. Aging Grateful just did a great one on, don't get rid of your stuff. And they were just like, some things, most of the things that we got rid of for good reason. Some of the things we felt like we could have kept now that we have, 2+ years behind us. But leave room for the unexpected, not just to be resilient, but for the opportunity. It's what we miss here in the States because we're just moving so much. We don't slow down to be able to see the nuances. I know when you love to drive, so I'm the passenger princess, but it's amazing what happens when I'm driving and he says, when did they build that? I was like, dude, that's been there a year. Like, you have driven past it every day for over a year. It's been there.
Your perspective changes when you're not in control anymore.
Yeah.
When you're not in the driver's seat, to use your scenario. And there's a broadening of looking at the perspectives in a different way than I'm watching taillights, trying to make sure this person in front of me don't slam on the brakes and we end up in an accident.
Right.
It has improved problem solving skills,
Yes.
and learning more to trust ourselves in this process. It's, well, if we don't do what so and so said, then it's going to happen. It's like, you know what? Let's get the things prepared that we need to. We've been blessed
Yes.
that 90% of the things we've taken, we haven't needed, but we don't regret taking them. Because as my father used to always say, it's better to have and not need it than to need it and not have it. Plan for it, but be okay if it doesn't go that way. Be okay if all you need is one more thing, then the only thing you need is one more thing. And it's like, okay, cool, I can go get that one thing. Because you planned for as much as you could plan for.
Right.
But if you bring the world, because they might not have anything, and then you got to find for something for everywhere for all this stuff to go, and then when we got married,
give the real story.
Which one?
When you pay for that piece of luggage that has all that crap in it that you really didn't need to bring, and you got to check that luggage.
No, you can't.
It has $1 incentive to be a better packer.
You didn't do your research, and you didn't know that the plugs on your high-end piece of appliance equipment doesn't plug into anything in the country you're going into. Now you've got a giant blender vase because you can't do a damn thing with it. I mean, it's just sitting there staring at you. When we got married, you talk about flexibility and reality together.
Yes.
When I was a child growing up, my father was a minister, my mother was a teacher, and she taught in the church school system of the church we attended. So every school year, at the end of the season, we went wherever. We traveled, we drove, we flowed. When we got married, right after our daughter was born, I said, "Oh, we're gonna take Jay this summer, and we're gonna do da 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 da." And she said, "How you gonna do that?" And I was like, "What do you mean? All we gotta do is something." And she said, "Baby, we're gonna be at work."
The whole reality of it. Yeah.
Because I had in my head, this is what life does. And when you do this, then you and I had to make a whole adjustment. It didn't mean that those opportunities to travel and engage and see the world, we didn't still want to make those available. But we had to rethink about. Now I had to understand taking off sick leave or taking off vacation time and what that meant. And it was a different level of research.
Mm-hmm.
We just visited 4 different countries. In our untrained ear, all the language sounds the same. The language is the same. It's not the same. The people are the same. They're absolutely not the same. It's 4 different countries. And in every country is a bunch of different cities. In every city, everybody approaches life differently. You got to be prepared for the flex.
Yes.
Game over. You got to be prepared for the flex. You got to be able to say, okay, this side of town is very quiet. That side of town is off the chain. I like what's going on over there, but I like the quiet over here.
Yes.
Can I make that work? And if you're coming from a space where you drive an hour and a half every day to go to work, you might decide that might not be your plan anymore. Right. There is a part of the big cityness that I'm realizing I appreciate and don't appreciate when we travel, because I grew up in big cityness. And so I recognize my anger management issues behind the wheel and my frustration with stupid driving. And so do I want to take that to somewhere else?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a thing for me? What's the flexibility on that? When you open the door to, okay, but if I don't, I may decide. We loved where we were in Costa Rica, but the traffic was always at a standstill. I've got to decide either everything I need needs to be on the side of town I'm on,
yeah,
and I go early in the morning or on Sundays to the other side of town, or or that's not the place for me. You have to be prepared for that, and then not be the end all be all.
I was going to say the deal breakers Yeah, I just, and just like we have the non-negotiables, I think for us, unstable political situation, safety concerns, are the deal breakers where we're just like, look, there's no two ways to turn this. If I feel that my safety is in jeopardy, if the political situation is uncertain, then I've got some decisions to
Mhm.
make. So this whole conversation really is about um, giving air
Mhm.
to a plan that helps to streamline some of the emotional aspects of anxiety,
Mhm.
um, nervousness, or even and then letting go of some of the perfectionism where we feel like I've talked about in relationship to you. This is a dream that I've had for a long time, y'all. The tower is high. I mean, and so I'm wanting it to be a good experience for both of us, but
Mhm.
I can only control and and take in the happiness that is for me,
Mhm.
and that I want to be open to hearing and allowing you to find the happiness and joy in this process, and that yes, I have a shared interest in your happiness, but I can't say that this trip, the way that I plan this trip, will fulfill the
Mhm.
happiness you desire. And so if you're traveling with a partner, if you are taking children with you, parents with you, that yes, there are going to be bumps in the road. Sometimes pivoting will be necessary, sometimes leaving and coming back at it in a different way is a bigger pivot, but that we should be open to the incremental parts of this process that it's going to require. And that is, y'all, the deep breaths I feel like I've been able to take that have just been like, okay, so I don't have to know everything. I don't have to get it right. I don't have to figure out how to be in the country for 6 months to know that it is the place before we choose it. Y'all just try to make your process, your plan, um, your process easier by recognizing that there's some lessons you're going to be
Mhm.
learning along the way, and that is normal, it is healthy, it is you're human. You're not a robot. There's no exact science to it. Someone asked a question about Mexico. I will answer a little bit of it. You do have to be in country when the visa expires for you to access the regularization. I know that Stephanie Perry will be talking about how she's going to do it. She's going to actually cross by land, where she knows she can get they only provide a 7-day tourist visa, and then it'll expire, and then she'll be able to go get her regularization, her permanent visa through regularization. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, people are finding ways, get in enough spaces where people are sharing their process with with full disclosure, good, bad, ugly, and everything in between.
People who are successful in whatever process they're doing, including this expat process, are successful because they are willing to make a pivot when necessary.
Yeah.
They're willing to adjust and flow when necessary. They have a plan with which they can build a base from,
Mhm.
and then they move to it. And we are encouraging that flexibility. We are encouraging that.
Co-living. Yeah. When I say it's all on the table, two people co-living with another couple, if it's necessary, if it fulfills a something that where it's mutually beneficial for us and other families for us to live,
and we will,
or share a space or share a lease, y'all. I'm telling you, there's 12 ways, 20,000 ways to cut this process so that it works for you. So thank you, Pinky, for sharing that you're in a pivot right now. We are celebrating the resiliency that you are admitting to. I'm telling you, Dr. Maya is not where she wants to be, but she's like, look, I'm doing this while I'm here because I know where I want to be. Y'all, people are doing this process and they are sharing that, look, this is the vision of what I had when I started. But when you get out here in these international streets, it's going to be different. And you determine if it fits your plan or not.
Mm-hmm.
I can't look at your plan and say, oh, you said this and that. Hey, ain't nobody. If you're with the judgy people, they're not your people.
What are your goals?
Judgy.
What is your why? How do you build a base for that? And how do you move on from it?
Yep.
There are people here who are dropping knowledge. Because it is an ongoing process. And allow yourself some grace.
Yes.
Allow yourself some grace. Be okay with saying, yeah, that's not working out like that. I'm going to change that. And you, if you're yourself, or you and your partner, if you're with someone else, parent, child, whatever, this is what we've decided. This is what we're going to do. This is what works best for us.
Yes.
Get at it. I am so grateful for all of you who have
come on, Gen X Quench. That's right. We pivoted. We out here pivoting. Pivoting from Black excellence. We are pivoting from the outward expression of I've made it. Several people talked about, look, minimalism is the flex. Get with the plan. Get with the plan. Temple, thank you for your
gift,
for your super chat. Thank you. We accept super chats. Buy us a coffee, because we're hoping that these are the kind of conversations about the reality of planning and moving abroad that you can get in this chat to actively ask questions, offer encouragement, but on the other side, that we are sharing and getting encouragement from you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
We're going to enjoy some of this day. We encourage you to do the same. We're H&D Abroad. I'm Herman. This is the lovely D.
Yes.
We're here every week. Watch for us. Next week's Valentine's weekend. For those of you that's important to. Do your thing. Love on somebody. We'll see you all soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, Kimmy Apple. Thank you so much for that. That's right. That's right. Let's support each other. Have a good day, everyone. Bye for now.